So I'm Craig Schneider. I'm a practice lead at Excella Consulting. And in that role, I oversee large groups of developers, designers, engineers who are all focused on delivery of features closely related to what we're here to talk about today. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the delivery of federal services in the context of this whole DevOps thing. How can we get to a point where we are increasing the frequency of deployments, improving the quality of those deployments for our customers, whether that is the industry, government, or the public? We hear about so many success stories nowadays in the federal government for DevOps, but yet there are still so many agencies that are struggling to get there and are looking for guidance on how to get there. And so I want to share with you a story about a journey I've had supporting several major federal agencies in actually getting there. And we have gotten there. We're now at a point where we are deploying to production 4 or 5 times a day, and it's automated. And the journey begins at a large federal agency that will go unnamed, which I spent a significant amount of time supporting. And I'll tell you that our production releases started on Friday evenings and went through late Monday afternoon. Friday night, they would run any non-breaking database packages in production. Saturday evening, things would pick back up, and all the applications would be brought down. And this is not a small set of applications. This is 30 to 40 major web apps that are servicing over tens of billions of dollars of revenue for this agency every year. So it's a big deal when you bring them all down. Saturday evening, breaking database changes get deployed to production. New versions of all the applications are deployed. And at some point, Sunday morning, all of the developers, QA, government stakeholders rejoin a phone call that's been going on since Friday night to validate production. And if you're lucky, you get your Sunday afternoon back. But all too often, what happens is you spend all of Sunday on the phone, troubleshooting, debugging issues, and making code fixes in production. And let me tell you, when you're in the middle of an outage window, even with all of the stage gate release approvals required, if there's a critical defect found in production, there are code fixes being made in production that skirt the approval process. By Monday, hopefully, everything is running, because Monday morning is when all the business users would hit the system. And that's over 100,000 of them every day. Monday afternoon, there's a deployment to a demo environment. And the demo environment is treated like production. It's just as important. So all in all, a 3-day production release process. The process was so painful that it had to be reduced to only occur 4 times a year, quarterly releases. We were so scared of impacting the users, who were very vocal, that we had to reduce the frequency with which we were delivering enhancements and new features to them, just because the actual release process was so painful for us and for them, having to deal with issues on our end. We created outage windows where, okay, let's get everybody off the system so we can bring everything down and not impact anybody. Well, you are. And so my life changed sometime in 2011 when a coworker came to me and plopped down on my desk a hardcover copy of Jez Humble and David Farley's book, Continuous Delivery. And he said, "Read this book. This is your Bible. And please report back to me what you learn. And I want this book back." And to make sure of that, he wrote his name in big block letters on the side of the book to make sure I would return it. And I read that book, And it was painful. But painful in a good type of way, because I learned a lot of insights into what we were doing wrong and got a lot of ideas that I could actually take back and work on implementing. And that's what I did. And really, what did it start with? It all started with continuous integration, which wasn't new at the time, but still across the government was not being consistently used. And by continuous integration, I still consider it to be a stepping stone to get to DevOps, to get to continuous delivery, continuous deployment. We're not talking about automating your builds once a day on a CI server. We were militant about our developers' usage of code branches. Everybody had to be merging their code into a common branch multiple times a day. In our case, we were stressing that the master branch be used for everything. The integration is not continuous unless people are integrating throughout the day. Things really progressed with the cloud, obviously. To a large extent, we couldn't be where we are today without the cloud. Standing up immutable environments has been a game changer. And by immutable, I mean our hosts and containers in production in all of our environments are short-lived. When we're doing deployments of applications, new features, we are replacing what is out there. We're tearing it down and replacing it. And with this approach, we've been able to introduce new things that benefit multiple groups of stakeholders within the agency. Self-service environments. Any IV&V teams or QA teams now have the capability to stand up their own instances of applications to test with through our CI server. Even the continuous integration server itself, Jenkins in our case, is built on an immutable infrastructure. We tear it down and replace it. And all of those jobs that are on the CI server, everything that's chaining together the pipelines from build to deployment, are all in code and can be replaced, which is crucial. But let's be clear about one thing. I do not distinguish between software development and DevOps. I have developers on my teams that are passionate about building web applications, learning new frameworks. And that's great. They can be the ones to build the apps. I have people on my teams that just want to work on enhancing our pipelines, making the process more efficient, becoming experts at every new AWS service that they release. And that's great. The key is they're all working together on the same teams. We are all DevOps. And with this DevOps orientation, we've been able to reduce the size of our releases, increase the frequency of them, increase the amount of automation, to the point where we do now have continuous deployment of features to production 4 to 5 times a day. Because tying it back, it's all about delivery to the customers. We used to have long, drawn-out user acceptance testing phases where real users would get on the system and test with manual scripts that we provided them on a system that was already built based on our perception of the correct requirements. Now we do usability testing often, all the time, oftentimes in production. And we're tracking the user's usage of the system, gathering feedback and metrics, and actually using that to prioritize what enhancements we should be working on. At USCIS, we're improving the capability for people to apply for immigration online. This is of paramount importance to the agency. And when we talk about modernization, what we're talking about is rewriting parts of legacy web apps in new cloud environments, writing abstraction API layers over top the legacy databases, and then seeing how quickly we can swap out that data layer and move that to the cloud. And with this approach, we have really been able to reduce the risk of each release while increasing the frequency. And I have to tell you that the thing that I have probably enjoyed the most about this whole DevOps, continuous delivery, continuous deployment thing is just getting my Saturday nights and Sunday afternoons back. Thank you.
Is this on? There we go. So questions. Let's see. Yes, sir.
It is nice to hear about I know the agency you mentioned indirectly, but so as far as the last question, last session also I asked it, the specific agency you are helping the DevOps. So how do you see, sorry to mention this, but Mark is leaving ahead, but at USCIS, you see any leadership gaps, or you see like already the momentum is there which won't stop or create any slowdown in DevOps effort at your effort, good effort there?
Yeah, so obviously that's a big deal, but no, I don't see an impact. The change that is required at an organization level to get to a point where you have hundreds of contracted developers deploying to production throughout the week is huge. You have to change all of the documentation approvals, all of the historical release reviews. How do we tailor those to this model? Those changes have occurred. So the role of a leader is such that you're building up the organization around you so that the movement can be sustained even if you depart. So no, I don't see any gap.
He reached the organization at the time waterfall failed, and then he introduced it. So.
Yeah.
And I do want to let you know that Mark is on his way, so we'll be here. So we're just, we're delivering this event in small bites and just trying to be very agile. Okay, time for maybe one more question? Yes, sir.
How long did it take you to go from Farley and Humble, or Humble and Farley, to a mature process? And are you there yet? Or are you still working on it? Or how long? What was your time span for that?
Well, the last question first. No, you're never there.
Okay, right. I kind of got that. I kind of reverse course with it.
The perfectionist attitude that is required and discipline, to be honest with you, requires a mindset of which you're never done. There are always improvements to be made. We were just hearing about security scanning of containers. There is always another thing that we need to perfect and improve efficiency on. How long did it take to go from the book to continuous delivery? Not even continuous deployment. A couple of years. Yeah. And really, it starts from the basic groundwork of just continuous integration.
What's the hardest part of that process? The one that you can give us the most advice on, focus here, because this is going to be the one that hurts the most.
The hardest part of that process has not been technical. It has been getting buy-in from business stakeholders that you might not look at everything before we push it out to production. We will set up controls within our pipeline so that you can trust what we're releasing, but you might not have looked at the feature yourself before your users see it. Now, how do we mitigate risk there? Because if you've got developers just pushing features out, well, we do implement pretty substantial feature toggling within our applications, which requires a little bit more upfront work. But if we have something that, oh, okay, we really do want the product owner to look at this before the public sees it, we'll still deploy it to production. It's out there. The product owner has the ability to go into either production or a pre-production environment, look at it, and they can toggle it on themselves. And we've done that with great success. Yep.
Your significant toggling that you do on Mike, how much telemetry do you get back? Let's say that the customer has the ability to actually toggle it on, toggle it off. Thank you. The customer has the ability to toggle the feature on or off at their discretion. How much telemetry have you built in for them so that they can actually say, go do A/B testing? Do you give that to the customer where they can determine the effectiveness and the usability of this product before they toggle it on, or is that something just your team does?
So the customer in this case, in our case, the customer is the public. So we're not letting the public toggle features. It's government stakeholders that toggle features on and off. Mm-hmm. But what are they looking at? We do a little bit of both. So what we haven't really gone into here is the whole user experience. And there is no DevOps, in my opinion, without a significant UX effort. So we do usability testing. Sometimes it's not even with a live application. Sometimes it is honestly just with mock-ups. Other times we'll have it built, but maybe it's only been iterated on a couple sprints in a non-production environment. Other times we have users just looking in production and giving us feedback. It's flexible enough that we can support and provide access to them anywhere.